Alright, good morning everyone. We are here with a break 353. It's been a while, but we are here and ready to go. Our team list for today: Broncos, Maria Lagan; Raiders, Peter Lowe; Bulldogs, Ben Patterson; Sharks, Josh Ellis; Dolphins, Josh Ellis; Titans, Michael Bolton; Manly, Nick Porter; Storm, Finn Sternbeck; Knights, Peter Lowe; Cowboys, Robert Ward; Eels, Daryl Barton; Panthers, Peter Lowe; Rabbitohs, David Morton; Dragons, Michelle Lovett; Roosters, Michael Slattery; Warriors, Peter Lowe; and Tigers, Luke Barlow. Alright. Bring our chat up. We have our mini starter case. We have our priority box, which we'll leave for last. And we have our titanium case to do. Got a couple of people joining. Welcome. Let's go. Before we start, you will hear a bit of construction noise in the background, guys. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do about that. It's going on for the next week or so, so we thought just best to get it done and put up with that in the background. So let's go. Start with our mini starter case. We listed a whole heap of complete insert sets yesterday. They're on the website. Season to remember, club heroes, fan favourites, a couple of retirement sets, a women's set. Get all these out. 20 starter packs in the mini starter case. Oh, there we go. Where are we? Been a little while. First one. In the bronze, to start us off, we've got a header card, or group card, sorry. So we'll randomise that between everyone at the end. In the bronze, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. In the gold, number 56, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. In the silver, 121, a Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. In the titanium, number 22, Ryan Pappenhausen. In the silver, 102, Luke Brooks. Hey Alex, welcome mate. In the silver, number 41, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. In the titanium, number 68, Luke Brooks for Manly. In the bronze, Herbie Farnworth for Dolphins. In the bronze, Luke Brooks for Manly. It feels like it, mate. Have you got any new trivia for me? In the titanium, number 9, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Talking about the Eels, I'm trying to think of the young lad's name. Looks like Eels will be picking up another Dragons player for next year. 5'8", I think he is. Silver, number 13, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. In the bronze, Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. In the bronze, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. So, feel like Broncos is the new franchise. Number 61, Ryan Pappenhausen in the gold for the Storm. Here you go, here's one for you, Dad. Name the player who scored the first ever 4-point try, who more than a decade later would go on to score the first ever try for a new franchise. Huh? Wally Lewis? Why, yes, I said Broncos. That's... Yeah, well, that's what he said. A decade later, he scored the first ever try for the franchise. In the bronze, Kalen Ponga for Knights. Oh, I'm getting distracted now. I don't know. I'm lost it. Pardon? I don't know. He hasn't answered that one. In the bronze, no, it's not. Lachlan Galvin, showcase for Tigers. Arthur Beetson, his mum. Mum's the only one with any suggestions. At least she's got something. Cameron Murray in the bronze for the Rabbitohs. Older names that you can... That's it. At least it's something. I couldn't even tell you when the 4-point try. 156, David Fafita in the silver. One of the tries was against the Broncos, but not for the Broncos. Gold. Number 30. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. The Broncos are already around. I don't know. Alright, well that's the end of them. And I still have no idea. Rising Stars, Casey Array for the Dragons before I was born. Me too, mate. Ruben Garrick, parallel for Manly. Season to remember, Addo Carr for the Bulldogs. Apasai Coruscant, parallel for Tigers. Thought someone else might have jumped in the comments to answer. As long as you don't Google. If you Google, you cheat. That's not fair. Millie Funga, Women's NRL for the Broncos. It's alright to Google, just so you know the answer, but then you can't comment once you find it. Jermaine Ozako, parallel for Dolphins. So 83 was the first year of the 4-point try. Well, it's the first year a 4-point try was scored. I don't know if there was a penalty or something involved in that. But and 95 was the year of the first franchise. So who played 95? Okay, Warriors was the one that came to mind for me. But Jonathan Thurston, you reckon? The scout? Cool, bro. Yeah. Josiah Palulu, club hero for the Titans. Dane Gagai, parallel for the Knights. I got no idea. I'm before my time. Rising Stars, Harrison Edwards for the Cowboys. Greg Marzhew, parallel for the Knights. Noisy out there today. Fan faves, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Just a reminder for everyone, if you are tuning in and you would like to comment, you do have to subscribe. It is so we can control what is in the comments. We like to keep it kid friendly. Cameron McInnes, parallel for the Sharks. Warriors is right. Yeah. Yep. So who scored the first ever try for the Warriors now is the question. Tegan Berry, fan faves for Dragons. Samula Fainu, parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Latrell Mitchell, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Season to remember for the Warriors, Tamar Martin. Tommy Turbo, parallel for Manly. Big Tino, parallel for Titans. The Converters, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Keon Kolomatangi, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Women's NRL Titans Checklist. Dragons Parallel Checklist. Rising Stars Blake Steep for the Roosters. Raiders Parallel Checklist. Rising Stars Caleb Navale for Manly. Raymond Fatala Mariner for the Dragons. You have 14 of his cards on the website. That doesn't help me, Alex. Herbie Farmer showcase for the Dolphins. Do you know how many cards we have listed? Harry Grant, parallel for the Storm. Last I actually looked, it was over 40,000. That doesn't include the variations, so like each number of each card, that's each individual card, and then you have, yeah. So, Rising Stars, Samuel Stone Street. Yes, I am. Tigers Parallel Checklist. The Converters, Kira Dib for the Cowboys. Reese Robson, parallel for the Cowboys. Oh, I'm ready. Yep. Everyone stopped trying to guess in the background. I had no idea to start off with. So, Rakea Horn for the Tigers. Matthew Tomoko, parallel for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Samula for the Tigers. Sam Walker, parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Chevy Stewart for the Raiders. Nico Hines, parallel for the Sharks. Fan Faves, Hammer for the Dolphins. Dean Mariner, parallel for the Broncos. Season to remember, Jared Herrera Hargraves for the Roosters. Tamar Martin, parallel for the Warriors. Phil Blake, there you go. Considering that achievement, you'd think his name would be more known. Will Penasini for the Eels. I do know the name, I just couldn't have told you that about him, or Yeah, anything really about him, other than he played for the Warriors. Pardon? Oh, there you go. I knew he played for the Warriors. Fan faves Julia Robinson for the Broncos. Tolto Koala, parallel for Manly. Rising Stars, Georgia Hannaway for the Sharks. Dream Buller, parallel for the Tigers. So it was the first 4-point try in 83. Was 83 the first time they introduced the 4-point try, or was it a penalty try, or how is it? What happened? Season to remember for the Dragons, Ben Hunt. Isaiah Katoa, parallel for the Dolphins. Yeah, that's what Dad was just saying. Played for a lot of clubs. Rising Stars, Liam Henry for the Panthers. Trent LaRoe, parallel for the Storm. Season to remember, Cameron Munster for the Storm. Keanu Kinney, parallel for Titans. Yep. Rising Stars, Rory Owen for the Eels. Reece Welsh, parallel for Broncos. Lachlan Galvin, showcase for the Tigers. I personally didn't know that, and I feel like I should. It's the game we love, and yeah, I'd be curious to know how many people did or do know that. 83 was the first year of the 4-point try, and it used to be 3 points before that. Panthers parallel checklist. Fan faves, Will Penasini for the Eels. Dylan Zelezniak, parallel for the Warriors. White authentic signature, number 1. Oh, nice. Not his jersey number. Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Nothing wrong with that, Alex. I really enjoy it, mate. I find it really interesting. Every time we go through this, I sit there thinking I should have known that, and I wish I did. That's, yeah, I say things that I did. Thomas Hazelton, parallel for the Sharks, because it's interesting. Jack Bostock, Club Heroes for the Dolphins. Phoenix Crossland, parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars, Liam Eason for the Sharks. Adam Dewey, parallel for the Tigers. Fan faves, Sylvia Havili for the Rabbitohs. Dylan Lucas, parallel for the Knights. Women's, Taryn Aiken for the Roosters. Molly Olika-Atu, parallel for Manly. Season to remember, Madison Bartlett for the Raiders. William Kennedy, parallel for the Sharks. Season to remember, Trey Fuller for the Dolphins. James Tedesco, parallel for the Roosters. Fan phase, Thomas Hazelton for the Sharks. Scott Drinkwater, parallel for the Cowboys. No, wasn't planning on it at the moment. Rising Stars, Josiah for the Titans. Matt Burton, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Joe Chan for the Storm. Jackson Ford, parallel for the Warriors. Season to remember, Rebecca Pollard for the Tigers. Payne Huss, parallel for the Broncos. Oh, excuse me. Club Heroes, Tiana Penatani for the Sharks. Ryan Pappenhausen, parallel for the Storm. Rising Stars, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Jojo Fafita, parallel for Titans. Jack DeBellin, parallel for the Dragons. Showcase Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Eels, parallel checklist. Retirements, Thomas Burgess for the Rabbitohs. We got David Morton. Reed Marnie, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Dion for the Rabbitohs. Brian To'o, parallel for Panthers. Fan faves, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Nathan Cleary, parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Benjamin Takura for the Broncos. Dylan Brown, parallel for the Eels. Club Heroes, Dane Gagai for the Knights. Felice Kafusi, parallel for the Dolphins. Fan faves, Reese Welsh for the Broncos. Alafiana Khan-Piera for Titans. Rising Stars, Lazarus for the Storm. Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors, parallel. How are we going? 1, 2, 7th last packet out of our starter packs. Season to remember, Alexis Tornay for the Dragons. Xavier Coates, parallel for the Storm. Parallel, Isaac Tago for Panthers. Rising Stars, Josiah for the Broncos. Joe Offengowie, parallel for the Eels. Showcase, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Tony Staggs, parallel for Broncos. Converters, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Valami Kickout, parallel for the Bulldogs. In the women's, Jakaya Whitfield for the Cowboys. Spencer Linu, parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Ethan Bullymore for the Manly. Jaden Stewart, parallel for Dragons. Right, let's clean up most of these. I have an empty box waiting, ready to go. Fit them in the first box, nice and easy. Let's find out who our lucky case card is. Alright, today, number 30, Tyrone Peachy for the Panthers. Alright, let's get them out. Who we have? Panthers, Peter Lowe today. Alright, box number 1. Let's go. Showcase Valami kicker for the Bulldogs. Luciano Leilua parallel for the Dragons. Season to remember, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Bulldogs NRL Checklist. Fan phase, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Lindsay Collins parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Lily Peacock for the Cowboys. Bradman Best parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars, Oren Keeley for the Dolphins. Tommy Dearden parallel for the Cowboys. Fan phase, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Renato Mulatalo parallel for the Sharks. Club Heroes, Avania Palit for the Titans. Xavier Savage parallel for Raiders. Women's NRL, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Cody Walker parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Moala Graham for the Warriors. Max Plath parallel for the Dolphins. Season to remember, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Lachlan Galvin parallel for the Tigers. Season to remember, Tamika Upton for the Knights. Jake Chaboyevich parallel for Manly. Fan phase, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Alex Seyfarth parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Grace Kemp for the Raiders. Brighton Nakora parallel for Sharks. Mitchell Barnett, Club Heroes for the Warriors. Dolphins parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Sione for now for the Dragons. Daly Cherry Evans, parallel for Manly. Showcase Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Kalen Ponga, parallel for the Knights. Team Fan Faves, first one for the break for the Raiders. One of the exclusive titaniums. Kyle Flanagan, parallel for the Dragons. You got the Team Fan Faves, you got the gold converters, which is just the parallel of the white ones, but once again only in titanium. You got the gold men's and the gold women's. Sure, there's one more. It's the black signatures. That's right. As well, they're the titanium exclusives. And talking about them, we have another one, Jack Whiten in the gold parallel, number 48. And Alex Johnston parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Casey McLean for the Panthers. Jerome Hughes parallel for the Storm. Season to remember, Anessa Biddle for the Sharks. I'm sorry, mate, I seen it in the comments. Alexander Brimson, parallel for Titans. I'm sure there'll be more priority to be listed, but Dad just chimed in to confirm in the background, yes, there will be more. So hopefully it's in there. I can't remember. Who is it, Alex? Quick, KO Weeks, fan phase for the Raiders. Warriors parallel checklist. I know it's in the comments, in the messages. Rising Stars, Ethan King for the Roosters. Hudson Young, Rachel Pearson, Hudson Young in the Raiders. And the priority. The converters, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Rising Stars, Dan Kerr for the Eels. Patrick Carrigan, parallel for the Broncos. If it's, pretty sure it's the converters one you're looking for, you keep an eye out, make sure it's in the wish list. Yes, there is one coming. Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Dylan Edwards, parallel for Panthers. Taylor Preston, women's NRL for the Sharks. Bryce Cartwright, parallel for the Raiders. Fan faves, Dylan Edwards for the Panthers. Jason Tormalolo, parallel for the Cowboys. Women's gold parallel for the Sharks, 179, Quincy Dodd. Storm parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Harry Hayes for the Bulldogs. Mawaki Fodawaka, parallel for Titans. The Converters, Rachel Pearson for the Eels. Chance Nicole Klokstad, parallel for the Warriors. Season to remember, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Women's NRL Cowboys checklist. Adam Reynolds, parallel for the Broncos. Rising Stars, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Liam Martin, parallel for Panthers. Season to remember, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Sean Lane, parallel for the Eels. 3 packets left for our first box out of the case. Rising Stars, Leilani Montgomery for the Titans. And number 20, Greg Marzhew for the Knights in authentic black. Jacob Preston, parallel for the Bulldogs. Latrell Mitchell, fan faves for the Rabbitohs. Jacob Carraz, parallel for the Bulldogs. And lucky last for the box, but unfortunately I think we've hit everything. So definitely not lucky last, but Rising Stars, Evie McGrath for the Tigers. Roosters parallel checklist. Well, that's a lie. There could have been a Legends. There we go. Box number 2. Rising Stars, Peter for the Rabbitohs. Tackling Machines, Jake Trbojevic for Manly, number 53. Scott Sorensen, parallel for the Panthers. Season to remember, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Mitchell Moses, parallel for the Eels. Women's Gold, Shannon Mato for the Titans, number 45. Broncos Parallel Checklist. Fan Faze, Reed Marnie for the Bulldogs. Max King, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. Victor Radley, parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Lipoi Hapoi for the Bulldogs. Jaden Campbell, parallel for the Titans. Showcase, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Mitchell Barnett, parallel for the Warriors. The Converters, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Murray Talagi, parallel for the Cowboys. Rachel Pearson, Women's NRL for the Eels. KO Weeks, parallel for the Raiders. Reece Walsh, fan faves for Broncos. Nick Meaney, parallel for the Storm. Rising Stars, Lily Ann White for the Knights. Tavita Tola, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Season to remember, Kyle Felt for the Cowboys. Jeremy Marshall King, parallel for the Dolphins. Fan fave, Saratoga Tukey for the Tigers. Manly parallel checklist. Season to remember, Alexis Tornay for the Dragons. Jacob Little, parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Liam Eason for the Sharks. Adam Dewey, parallel for Tigers. Converters, parallel, Adam Pompey for the Warriors. Thomas Hazelton, parallel for the Sharks. Gold parallel number 50. Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Rising Stars, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Kai Pierce Paul parallel for Knights. Club Heroes, Tamika Upton for the Knights. Phoenix Crossland parallel for the Knights. Women's NRL, Sarah Togatuki for the Tigers. Sharks parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Jaden Sewer parallel for the Dragons. Season to remember, Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. Xavier Coates parallel for the Storm. Fan phase, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Alifiana Kampi Era parallel for Titans. Club Heroes, Samula Fainu for the Tigers. Justin Olam parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Lazarus for Storm. Roger Tuivasa Sheck parallel for Warriors. Showcase, Lachlan Galvin for Tigers. Katoni Staggs parallel for Broncos. Rising Stars, Lycan King. That's the guy that I was thinking of going to Para next year for the Dragons. Luke Brooks, parallel for Manly. Fan faves team for the Titans. Isaac Tago, parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Josiah for the Broncos. Joe Offengowie, parallel for the Eels. The Converters, Nick Meaney for Storm. Balami Kickout, parallel for Bulldogs. Fan faves, Mark Nichols for the Dolphins. Jack Bostock, parallel for the Dolphins. 6 last packet for box number 2. Women's NRL, Madison Bartlett for the Raiders. Spencer Linu, parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Cowboys parallel checklist. Season 2 remember, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Joseph Tarpanay, parallel for the Raiders. Season to remember, Samantha Bremner for the Roosters. Jai Arrow, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Fan phase, Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. And Jack Whiten, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Last pack for the box. Rising Stars, Dimitri for the Warriors, and Hammer Fido, parallel for the Dolphins. Let's go with box number 3. Rising Stars, Lazarus for Storm. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, parallel for the Warriors. Season to remember, Renato Mulatalo for the Sharks. Titans, parallel checklist. Ethan Strange, fan faves for the Raiders. Wade Egan, parallel for the Warriors. Fan phase team for the Dolphins. Rising Stars, Charlie Geimer for the Eels. Selwyn Cobbo, parallel for the Broncos. Fan phase, Josh King for the Storm. Alefiana Khan-Pierre, parallel for Titans. Club Heroes, Liam Henry for Panthers. Moses Leota, parallel for Panthers. Zahara Tamara, Women's NRL for the Raiders. Jermaine Hopgood, parallel for the Eels. Season to remember, Clint Gutherson for the Eels. Xavier Coates, parallel for Storm. Rising Stars, Tony Francis for Titans. Connor Tracy, parallel for the Bulldogs. Season to remember, Tommy Talau for Manly. Dominic Young, parallel for the Roosters. Fan phase, Brian To'o for Panthers. Ruben Cotter, parallel for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Jaden Stewart, parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Elia Nasio for the Roosters. Jamal Fogarty, parallel for the Raiders. Showcase Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Jai Arrow, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Women's Gold, Taylor Predibon for the Knights, number 160. Jack Bostock, parallel for the Dolphins. Women's NRL, Taylor Predibon for the Knights. Phoenix Crossland, parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars, Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Luke Brooks, parallel for Manly. Season to remember, Sanua Taruva for Panthers. Justin Olam, parallel for the Tigers. The Converters, Kira Dip for Cowboys. Thomas Hazelton, parallel for the Sharks. Fan Faves, Jaden Campbell for Titans. Sharks, parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. And Dalian Predictor for the Women's. In the Broncos, number 29. Kai Pearce-Paul, parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars, Liam Eason for the Sharks. Adam Dewey, parallel for the Tigers. The Converters, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Jacob Little, parallel for the Dragons. Women's NRL Roosters Checklist. Nick Meaney, parallel for Storm. Tommy Talau, Gold Parallel, number 57. Parallel Manly Checklist. Rising Stars, Lipoi Hapoi for the Bulldogs, Jaden Campbell, parallel for the Titans. Season to remember, Jamal Fogarty for the Raiders, Mitchell Barnett, parallel for the Warriors. Fan phase, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Broncos, parallel checklist. Showcase a group card, so we'll have to randomize that one between all 17 as well. Jeremy Marshall King, parallel for the Dolphins. Rising Stars, Peter for the Rabbitohs. Scott Sorensen, parallel for the Panthers. Converters parallel, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Mitchell Moses, parallel for the Eels. Club Heroes, Julia Robinson for the Broncos. Max King, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Lily Ann White for the Knights. Tavita Totola, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Third last packet for box number 3. Rising Stars, Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers and Victor Bradley, parallel for the Roosters. Season to remember, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Murray Talagi, parallel for the Cowboys. Fan phase, Kalen Ponga for the Knights and KO Weeks, parallel for the Raiders. Box number 3 done and dusted. Box number 4, let's go. Season to remember, Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. Jeremiah Nanai, parallel for the Cowboys. Fan faves, Greg Marzhew for the Knights. Morgan Smithies, parallel for the Raiders. Women's Gold, Bobby Law for the Dragons, number 109. Rising Stars, Kai Pearce, Paul for the Knights. Cameron Murray, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Club Heroes, Regan Campbell Gillard for the Eels. Felice Kafusi, parallel for the Dolphins. Rising Stars, Jacob Lavin for the Warriors. Herbie Farnworth, parallel for the Dolphins. Van Faves in the team for Manly. Tommy Talau, parallel for Manly. Club Heroes, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Parallel, Charlie Staines for the Tigers. Women's NRL, Bobby Law for the Dragons. Amoli Olika R2, parallel for Manly. Rising Stars, Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. Tigers, parallel checklist. Season to remember, Regan Campbell Gillard for the Eels. William Kennedy, parallel for Sharks. Van Faze, Harry Grant for Storm. Dylan Lucas, parallel for the Knights. Rising Stars, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Jesse Ramian, parallel for the Sharks. Season to remember, Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Leo Thompson, parallel for the Knights. Fan Faves, Tiana Penatani for the Sharks. Blake Laurie, parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Caleb Navale for Manly. Raymond Fatala Mariner, parallel for the Dragons. Showcase Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Harry Grant, parallel for Storm. Gold parallel, Charlie Staines for the Tigers, number 46. Big Tino parallel for the Titans. Rising Stars, Joe Chan for Storm. Jackson Ford parallel for the Warriors. Season to remember, Tane Topuki for the Warriors. Payne Haas parallel for the Broncos. Converters, Kira Dib for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Maverick for the Panthers. Elijah Katoa parallel for Storm. Van Faves, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Nathan Cleary parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Benjamin Takura for Broncos. G'day David, welcome mate. Dylan Brown parallel for the Eels. Converters, Jamal Fogarty for the Raiders. Stephen Crichton parallel for Bulldogs. Shannon Mato, Women's NRL for the Titans. Angus Crichton parallel for the Roosters. Showcase, David Fafita for Titans. Titans parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Max Plaff for the Dolphins. Helam Lukey parallel for the Cowboys. Season to remember, Xavier Coates for Storm. Ethan Strange parallel for the Raiders. Mitchell Moses fan phase for the Eels. Rabbitohs parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Charlie Geimer for the Eels. Selwyn Cobbo parallel for the Broncos. Converters, Jocelyn Keller for the Roosters. Moses Leota parallel for Panthers. Women's NRL, Julia Robinson for the Broncos. Jermaine Hopgood, parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Tony Francis for the Titans. Connor Tracy, parallel for the Bulldogs. Edric Lee, retirements for the Dolphins. Parallel, Wade Egan for the Warriors. 3 packets left for box number 4. Season to remember, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Dominic Young, parallel for the Roosters. Fan faves, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Reuben Cotter, parallel for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Elia Nazio for the Roosters. Jamal Foddy, parallel for the Raiders. And that's it of another box. Yes, that should be fine if you do it quick enough. Box number 5. Club Heroes, Isaiah Yeo for Panthers. Mitchell Moses, parallel for the Eels. Women's NRL, Jessica Elliston for the Titans. Max King, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Rory Owen for the Eels. Reece Walsh, parallel for the Broncos. Rising Stars, Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. Too easy, mate. Victor Bradley, parallel for the Roosters. Season to remember, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Murray Talagi, parallel for the Cowboys. Fan phase Thomas Hazelton for the Sharks. Dylan Watine Zalesniak parallel for the Warriors. Fan phase Callan Ponga for Knights. KO Weeks parallel for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Lily and White for the Knights. Tavita Totola parallel for the Rabbitohs. Season to remember, Trey Fuller for the Dolphins. Keanu Kinney parallel for the Titans. Showcase Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Jeremy Marshall King parallel for Dolphins. Gold parallel checklist number 195 for the Raiders in the NRLW. Manly parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Liam Ison for Sharks. Adam Dewey parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Liam Henry for Panthers. Trent LaRoe parallel for Storm. Gutherson, season to remember for the Eels. Thomas Hazelton parallel for the Sharks. Fan phase Josh King for the Storm. Phoenix Crossland parallel for the Knights. Women's NRL Lasana Lutu for the Tigers. Dragons parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Jaden Sewer parallel for the Dragons. Converters, Adam Pompey for the Warriors, and Xavier Coates parallel for the Warriors. Converters, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Dane Gagai, parallel for the Knights. Women's NRL, Ali Brigginshaw for the Broncos. Alifiana Campiera for the Titans. Season to remember, Jamal Fogarty for the Raiders. Mitchell Barnett, parallel for the Warriors. Van Phase in the team for the Knights. Rising Stars. Lazarus for Storm. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, parallel for Warriors. Rising Stars, Chevy Stewart for the Raiders. Nico Hines, parallel for the Sharks. Season to remember, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Tony Staggs, parallel for the Broncos. Van Phase, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Isaac Tago, parallel for Panthers. Gold Converters, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Samula Fainu, parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Josiah for the Broncos. Joe Offengowie, parallel for the Eels. White Authentic. Another number 1. Jackson Ford for the Warriors. Bellamy Kickout, parallel for the Bulldogs. Showcase Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Tommy Turbo, parallel for Manly. Club Heroes, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Spencer Lenu, parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Cowboys, parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Dimitri for the Warriors. The Hammer, parallel for Dolphins. Fan faves, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Broncos parallel checklist. Men's gold parallel, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs, number 20. Rising Stars, Peter for the Rabbitohs. Scott Sorensen parallel for Panthers. Season to remember, Cameron Munster for the Storm. Joseph Tarpanay parallel for the Raiders. Lucky last for number 5. Fan faves, Will Penasini for the Eels and Jack Whiten parallel for the Rabbitohs. Alright, box number 6. Season to remember, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Katoni Staggs parallel for the Broncos. Tegan Berry fan faves for the Dragons. Isaac Tago parallel for Panthers. Gold parallel, Helam Aluki for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Josiah for the Broncos. Joe Offengowie parallel for the Eels. Club Heroes, Kale Iro for the Sharks. Valami Kickout parallel for the Bulldogs. Women's NRL, Tally Holmes for the Sharks. Spencer Lanu parallel for Roosters. Rising Stars, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Cowboys parallel checklist. Cameron Munster, season to remember for the Storm. Joseph Tarpanay parallel for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Harrison Edwards for the Cowboys. Greg Marshall parallel for the Knights. Fan phase, Will Penasini for the Eels. Jack Whiten parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Dimitri for the Warriors. The Hammer parallel for the Dolphins. Showcase Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Tommy Turbo parallel for Manly. Gold Converters, Jamal Fogarty for the Raiders. Samula Fanu parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Chevy Stewart for the Raiders. Nico Hines parallel for the Sharks. Season to remember, Trey Fuller for the Dolphins. Dane Gagai parallel for the Knights. Thomas Hazelton, fan faves for the Sharks. Dragons parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Liam Henry for the Panthers. Trent LaRoe parallel for the Storm. Converters, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Keanu Kinney parallel for Titans. Converters, Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. Jack DeBellin parallel for the Dragons. Women's NRL, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Ryan Pappenhausen parallel for the Storm. Women's NRL, Jasmine Peters for the Cowboys. Dallin Watine Zalesniak parallel for the Warriors. Rising Stars, Rory Owen for the Eels. Reece Walsh parallel for the Broncos. Season to remember, Addo Carr for the Bulldogs. Panthers parallel checklist. Fan faves, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Will Penasini parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Josiah for Titans. Matt Burton parallel for the Bulldogs. Fan faves team, for the Storm. Rising Stars, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Jojo Fafita, parallel for Titans. Season 2 Remember, Ben Hunt for the Dragons. Tamir Martin, parallel for the Warriors. Tigers Women's, number 133 in the gold checklist. And we have Mr. Teddy, parallel for the Roosters. I've read a headline just before we would, not long before I went live, talking about Adam Reynolds, worried that he's not going to fit in the salary cap next year for the Broncos. Club Heroes, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Scott Drinkwater, parallel for the Cowboys. I don't know, in the past, they've definitely proven how much they miss him when he's not there, so saying that he can't fit is a big call. Blake Steep, Rising Stars for the Roosters. Raiders, parallel checklist. Season 2 Remember, Jared Herrera-Hargreaves for the Roosters. Keon Kolomatangi, parallel for Rabbitohs. Fan faves, the Hammer for Dolphins. Jermaine Isako, parallel for Dolphins. 5 packets left for box number 6. Rising Stars, Casey Ray for the Dragons. Ruben Garrick, parallel for Manly. Showcase Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. Apsai Coruscant, parallel for the Tigers. Tyrone Peachy, retirement for Panthers. Cameron McInnes, parallel for the Sharks. Fan faves, Julia Robinson for the Broncos. Dean Mariner, parallel for Broncos. And lucky last for the box. Rising Stars, Dion for the Rabbitohs. Brian Totter, parallel for Panthers. Alright, and that is us halfway through the case. I am going to quickly go grab a can of drink, guys. I will be right back in a minute. Well, thanks for sticking with me, guys. Hopefully you've grabbed a drink or something as well. But we are back and ready to go. Yeah, so I was starting to feel a bit dry and a bit sticky. But we're good. Let's go. Season to remember. Addo Carr for the Bulldogs. Panthers parallel checklist. Fan phase. James Tedesco for the Roosters. Will Panicini parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Josiah for the Titans. Matt Burton, parallel for the Bulldogs. Club Heroes, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. James Tedesco, parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Harrison Edwards for the Cowboys. Greg Marzhew, parallel for Knights. Season to remember, Ben Hunt for the Dragons. Jack DeBellon, parallel for the Dragons. Julia Robinson, fan faves for the Broncos. Brian Pappenhausen, parallel for the Storm. Rising Stars, Bailey Hayward for the Bulldogs. Jojo Fafita, parallel for the Titans. Women's NRL Eels Checklist. Scott Drinkwater, parallel for the Cowboys. Leo Thompson, gold parallel number 27. Rising Stars, Blake Steep for the Roosters, and Raiders parallel checklist. Season to remember, Jared Herrera-Hargreaves for the Roosters. Keon Kolomatangi parallel for the Rabbitohs. Fan faves, the Hammer for the Dolphins. Jermaine Isako parallel for the Dolphins. Rising Stars, Casey Array for the Dragons. Tackling Machines, Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers, number 9. Isn't he a hooker? No, maybe not. I thought he was a hooker for some reason. Anybody? What's Coruscant? Ruben Garrick, parallel for Manly. Showcase Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Apasai Coruscant, parallel. He's a hooker, so that was jersey number. There you go. I thought I was right. Oh, good, yeah. I've lost my team list too. Who's Luke Barlow? Nick Porter with Manly was your first break. That's right. Converters, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Cameron McInnes, parallel for the Sharks. Couple of new names that I don't either remember or I haven't seen. So women's gold, Kira Dibb for the Cowboys, number 27. Reese Robson, a parallel for the Cowboys. Club Heroes, Jack Howarth for the Storm. Matthew Tomoko, parallel for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Latrell Mitchell, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Season to remember, Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Isaiah Katoa, parallel for the Dolphins. Fan phase, Alex Twal for the Tigers. Tolator Koala, parallel for Manly. Rising Stars, Georgia Hanaway for the Sharks. Dream Buller, parallel for the Tigers. Showcase Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Blake Brayley, parallel for the Sharks. Season to remember, Alifiana Khan-Pierre for the Titans. Eels, parallel checklist. Fan faves, Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Reed Marnie, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Samula for the Tigers. Sam Walker, parallel for the Roosters. Retirements, Jared Barrera Hargraves for the Roosters. It's nice seeing someone in the same jersey all the way across. Knights parallel checklist. Maybe someone should have asked Cherry Evans, would he realise he'd have to wear multiple jerseys on his retirement card? Rising Stars, Aleha Hopewate for Manly. Tyrell Sloan, parallel for the Dragons. Converters, Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Cameron Munster, parallel for Storm. The Converters, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Tamir Martin, parallel for Warriors. Women's NRL, Taryn Aiken for the Roosters. David Fafita, parallel for Titans. Sophie Holloman, Women's NRL for the Raiders. Dean Mariner, parallel for the Broncos. As long as DC isn't wearing Roosters jersey, I don't like hating on a team player. It's rare to have a single team player, so I think it's an achievement when they can do it. And a disappointment like with Reynolds. Yeah, he should have been able to stay there. The salary cap needs adjusting in certain ways, not in others. Rising Stars for the Storm. How confusing does that sound? Tohu Harris, parallel for the Warriors. Number one, I think it should be performance based. So if you don't perform, you don't get paid. Two, if you develop a junior through your junior rep squads and all that, then you should get an allowance for that in the NRL. As well as having a one-team player towards the end of their career, you should get a bonus in the salary cap for them as well. Toops will have all three Roosters jersey on his retirement year. Van Faves for Panthers. Rising Stars, Dion for the Rabbitohs. Brian Todd, parallel for Panthers. 3 packets left for Pathways allowances for sure, yeah. And I think doing that, as long as with the one team players and the performance based pay, that would change things a lot, I reckon. Season to remember, Stacey Waka for the Broncos. Ezra Mann, parallel for the Broncos. Jake Jabojevic, fan faves for Manly. Isaiah Yo, parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Skylar Adams for the Broncos. Micah Sivo, parallel for the Eels. And that's another one done. Zach Lomax, season to remember for the Dragons. Luciano Leilua, parallel for the Dragons. Fan faves, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Storm parallel checklist. Gold parallel, Dallin Watine Zalesniak, number 56 for the Warriors. Morgan Smithies, parallel for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Kai Kearse Paul for the Knights. Cameron Murray, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Season to remember, Chad Townsend for the Cowboys. Felice Kafusi, parallel for the Dolphins. Converters, Pauline Razabel, parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Harry Hayes for the Bulldogs. And Mawaki Fotowaka, parallel for Titans. Club Heroes, Bree Chester for the Cowboys. Chance Nicole Klokstad, parallel for the Warriors. Women's NRL Broncos checklist. Adam Reynolds, parallel for the Broncos. Rising Stars, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Liam Martin, parallel for Panthers. Season to remember, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Sean Lane, parallel for the Eels. Fan fave, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Jacob Carraz, parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Evie McGrath for the Tigers. Roosters, parallel checklist. G'day Shannon, how's it going, buddy? Showcase Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Jeremiah Nanai, parallel for the Cowboys. Any luck yet, mate? Season to remember. Jock Madden for the Broncos. Harry Grant, parallel for the Storm. Fan faves, Molly Olika R2 for Manly. Big Tino, parallel for the Titans. Rising Stars, Joe Chan for Storm. Jackson Ford, parallel for the Warriors. Fan faves in the team for the Eels. Payne Haas, parallel for the Broncos. What about with Afterpay? Have they changed their mind? Club Heroes, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Nathan Cleary, parallel for Panthers. Rising Stars, Benjamin Takura for Broncos. Dylan Brown, parallel for the Eels. Fan faves, Dream Buller for the Tigers. Amali Olika R2, parallel for Manly. A robot that needs oil. Rabbitohs, Jack Whiten for season to remember. Stephen Crichton, parallel for the Bulldogs. That sucks, mate. Hopefully, either they turn around and resend it back out to you and it sorts itself out with a bit of drama, obviously. Otherwise, hopefully Afterpay come around and fix it. Jacoa Whitfield, fan face for Cowboys. Angus Crichton, parallel for the Roosters. Kelsey Albert, gold parallel number 91 for the Eels. Rising Stars, Max Plath for the Dolphins. Elam Aluki, parallel for the Cowboys. Showcase Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Ethan Strange, parallel for the Raiders. Retirement, Jordan Rapana for the Raiders. Rabbitohs parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Jacob Laban for the Warriors. Herbie Farmworth, parallel for the Dolphins. Oh, right, okay. I'd seen they'd been around for a while, but didn't know who they were or heard of any issues. Latrell Mitchell, the Converters for the Rabbitohs. Tommy Talau, parallel for Manly. Women's NRL, Abby Church for the Eels. Charlie Staines, parallel for Tigers. Rising Stars, Samuel Stonestreet for the Sharks. Tigers parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Jesse Ramian, parallel for the Sharks. The Converters, Taylor Preston for the Sharks. William Kennedy, parallel for the Sharks. Pauline Pilley Razabel for the Tigers. Dylan Lucas, parallel for the Knights. Season to remember, Bradman Best for the Knights. Leo Thompson, parallel for the Knights. Fan faves, Dylan Bettine Zalesniak for the Warriors. Blake Laurie, parallel for the Dragons. 2 packets left for the box. Rising Stars, Caleb Nevale for Manly. Raymond Faitala Mariner, parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Maverick Gaia for Panthers. And Eliza Katoa, parallel for Storm. Season to remember, Jock Madden for Broncos. Harry Grant, parallel for the Storm. Fan phase, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Big Tino, parallel for the Titans. Fan phase, Dallin Vatine-Zelezniak for the Warriors. Charlie Staines, parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Jesse Ramian, parallel for the Sharks. Rising Stars, Joe Chan for Storm. Jackson Ford, parallel for the Warriors. Club Heroes, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Payne Haas, parallel for the Broncos. Women's NRL, Emma Tonigato for the Sharks. Nathan Cleary, parallel for Panthers. The Converters, Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. Leo Thompson, parallel for the Knights. Women's NRL, Mackenzie Whale for the Cowboys. Blake Laurie, parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Benjamin Takura for the Broncos. Dylan Edwards, parallel for the Eels. Season to remember, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Stephen Crichton, parallel for the Bulldogs. Fan faves, Jakaya Whitfield for the Cowboys. Angus Crichton, parallel for the Roosters. Gold parallel, Batil Vet Welsh, 107 for the Tigers. Max Plath, Rising Stars for the Dolphins. Helam Aluki, parallel for the Cowboys. And we have another showcase group card. So we'll have them both to randomize. Ethan Strange, parallel for the Raiders. Fan faves, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Wade Egan, parallel for the Warriors. Rising Stars, Charlie Geimer for the Eels. Selwyn Cobbo, parallel for the Broncos. Fan phase in the team for Cowboys. Moses Leota, parallel for Panthers. Samaima Taufa, Club Heroes for the Raiders. Jermaine Hopgood, parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Tony Francis for the Titans. Connor Tracy, parallel for the Bulldogs. Season to remember, Tommy Talau for Manly. Dominic Young, parallel for the Roosters. Fan faves, Brian To'o for Panthers. Ruben Cotter, parallel for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Elia Masio for the Roosters. Jamal Fogarty, parallel for the Raiders. Showcase, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Jai Arrow, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Maverick Geyer for the Panthers. Eliza Katoa, parallel for Storm. Season to remember, Renato Mulatalo for Sharks. Titans, parallel checklist. Retirements, David Nofaluma for the Tigers. Parallel, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Converters parallel, Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Rising Stars, Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. And Luke Brooks, parallel for Manly. Converters, Romy Teetsel for the Broncos. Justin Olam, parallel for the Tigers. Women's NRL Dragons Checklist. Sharks parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Jackson Perdue for the Cowboys. Kai Pierce Paul, parallel for the Knights. Season to remember, Sanua Taruva for Panthers. Jacob Little, parallel for the Dragons. Fan phase, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Nick Meaney, parallel for the Storm. Gold parallel number 22, Jacob Little for the Dragons. Rabbitohs parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Jacob Laban for the Warriors, and Herbie Farmworth parallel for the Dolphins. Bradman Best, season to remember for the Knights, Tommy Talau parallel for Manly. Last packet for the box. Rising Stars, Lapoi Hapoi for Bulldogs, and Jaden Campbell parallel for the Titans. Another box down. Let's go. Season to remember, David Armstrong for the Knights, Tommy Turbo parallel for Manly. Fan phase, Tohu Harris for the Warriors. Samula Whanu parallel for the Tigers. Gold parallel checklist number 46 for the Broncos. Rising Stars, Chevy Stewart for the Raiders, and Nico Hines parallel for the Sharks. Club Heroes, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs, and Dane Gagai parallel for the Knights. Women's NRL, Olivia Koenig for the Roosters. Dragons parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Liam Henry for Panthers. Trent LaRoe parallel for Storm. Season to remember, Dale Finucane for the Sharks. Keanu Kinney parallel for Titans. Fan phase Mackenzie Wiki for the Raiders. Dallin Zelezniak parallel for the Warriors. Season to remember Madison Bartlett for the Raiders. Tamir Martin parallel for the Warriors. Fan faves Sylvia for the Rabbitohs. Dean Mariner parallel for the Broncos. Rising Stars Rory Owen for the Eels. Reece Welsh parallel for the Broncos. Showcase Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Panthers parallel checklist. Converters parallel Taylor Preston for the Sharks. Will Penasini parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars Josiah for the Titans. Matt Burton parallel for the Bulldogs. Season to remember Dally Cherry Evans for Manly. James Tedesco parallel for Roosters. Fan faves Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Scott Drinkwater parallel for Cowboys. Didn't want to stay in the fingers. Rising Stars Dion for the Rabbitohs. Ryan Totter parallel for Panthers. Showcase Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Eels parallel checklist. Retirements Isaac Alou for the Titans. Parallel Reed Marnie for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars Blake Steep for the Roosters. Raiders parallel checklist. Converters Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Keon Kolomatangi parallel for the Rabbitohs. Jesse Southwell, Women's NRL for the Knights. Jermaine Isako, parallel for the Dolphins. Rising Stars, Casey Ray for the Dragons. Ruben Garrick, parallel for Manly. Season to remember, Isaac Tago for Panthers and Afasai Coruscant, parallel for Tigers. Rising Stars, Samula Finu for Tigers. Sam Walker, parallel for the Roosters. Fan Faves, Alexander Brimson for the Titans. Cameron McInnes, parallel for the Sharks. Rising Stars, Harrison Edwards for the Cowboys. Greg Marshue, parallel for Knights. Gold parallel 147, Millie Elliott for the Roosters. Jack DeBellin, parallel for the Dragons. Club Heroes, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Ryan Papenhausen, parallel for the Storm. Rising Stars, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Jojo Fafita, parallel for Titans. The Converters, Pauline Razabel for the Tigers. Reese Robson, parallel for the Cowboys. Ellie Johnston, Women's NRL for the Sharks. Matthew Tomoko, parallel for the Raiders. Fan faves in the team for Dragons. Rising Stars, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Latrell Mitchell, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Third last packet for the box. Season to remember, Rebecca Pollard for the Tigers. Isaiah Katoa, parallel for Dolphins. Fan faves, Yasmin Clydesdale for Knights. Tolator Koala, parallel for Manly. Lucky last for the box. Rising Stars, Georgia Hanaway for the Sharks, and Jareem Buller, parallel for the Tigers. Let's go. Excuse me. Rising Stars, Lily Peacock for the Cowboys. Bradman Best, parallel for the Knights. Season to remember, Azali Faye for the Eels. Blake Brayley, parallel for the Sharks. Fan faves, Orion Pappenhausen for the Storm. Knights parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Tyrell Sloan parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Sione Finau for the Dragons. Daly Cherry Evans parallel for Manly. Season to remember, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Lachlan Galvin parallel for Tigers. Club Heroes, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Cameron Munster parallel for Storm. Women's NRL, Jakaya Whitfield for the Cowboys. David Fafita parallel for the Titans. Gold parallel, Mali Hafunga for the Broncos, number 52. Rising Stars for Storm. Tohu Harris parallel for the Warriors. Women's NRL, Jamie Chapman for the Titans and Dolphins parallel checklist. Season to remember, Sean Johnson for the Warriors. Ezra Mam parallel for the Broncos. Fan faves, Blake Laurie for the Dragons. Isaiah Yeo parallel for Panthers. The Converters, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Alex Johnston parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Skylar Adams for the Broncos. Micah Sivo parallel for Eels. Showcase Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Bulldogs parallel checklist. In the team fan faves for Tigers, Lindsay Collins parallel for the Roosters. Rising Stars, Ethan King for the Roosters. Hudson Young parallel for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Oren Kelly for the Dolphins. Tommy Dearden parallel for the Cowboys. Season to remember, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Xavier Savage parallel for the Raiders. Gold parallel number 67, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Parallel, Jason Taumalolo for the Cowboys. Fan faves, Kennedy Sherrington for the Eels. Cody Walker parallel for the Rabbitohs. Rising Stars, Mawala Graham for the Warriors. Max Plath parallel for the Dolphins. Showcase Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Connor Watson parallel for the Roosters. The Converters, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Jake Jaboyevich parallel for Manly. Women's NRL, Ella Costa for the Dragons. Alex Seafarth parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Leilani Montgomery for the Titans, and Jacob Preston parallel for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Grace Kemp for the Raiders, and Brighton Nakora parallel for the Sharks. Season to remember, the Hammer for Dolphins, and Kalen Ponga parallel for Knights. Jessica Surgis fan faves for the Roosters, and Bryce Cartwright, parallel for Eels. Fan faves, Nico Hines for the Sharks, Kyle Flanagan, parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Casey McLean for Panthers, and Jerome Hughes, parallel for Storm. And Premiership Predictor, NRLW, number 92 for the Titans. AJ Brimson, parallel for the Titans. 4 packets left for this box. Fan faves, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Ronaldo Mulatalo, parallel for the Sharks. Season to remember, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Dylan Edwards, parallel for Panthers. Club Heroes, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Warriors, parallel checklist. The Gold Converters, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Rising Stars for the Eels, Dean Kerr and Patrick Carrigan, parallel for the Broncos. That's the end of that box. Only 2 boxes left to go. Box number 12 and our priority box. Rising Stars, Skylar Adams for the Broncos. Micah Sivo, parallel for the Eels. Season to remember, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Bulldogs, parallel checklist. Women's NRL, Lauren Brown for the Titans. Matthew Tomoko, parallel for the Raiders. Grace Kemp, Women's NRL Gold, number 12 for the Raiders. Rising Stars, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Oh, Latrell Mitchell, parallel for the Rabbitohs. Women's NRL, Romy Teasel for the Broncos. Isaiah Yeo, parallel for the Panthers. Season to remember, Kira Dib for the Cowboys. Isaiah Katoa, parallel for Dolphins. Fan Phase Alex 12 for the Tigers. Tolatoa Koala, parallel for Manly. Rising Stars, Georgia Hannaway for the Sharks. Dream Buller, parallel for the Tigers. Fan Phase, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Lindsay Collins, parallel for the Roosters. Fan Phase, Jake Trbojevic for Manly. David Feeder, parallel for Titans. Rising Stars, Oren Keeley for the Dolphins. Tommy Dearden, parallel for the Cowboys. The Converters, Jocelyn Keller for the Roosters. Xavier Savage, parallel for the Raiders. Season to remember, Alafiana Kampi error for Titans. Eels, parallel checklist. Club Heroes, Elsie Albert for the Eels. Cody Walker, parallel for Rabbitohs. Converters, Sam Walker for the Roosters, and Ezra Mam, parallel for Broncos. Rising Stars, Mawala Graham for the Warriors. Max Plath, parallel for the Dolphins. Season to remember, Tamika Upton for the Knights. Jake Trbojevic, parallel for Manly. Rising Stars for the Storm. Tackling Machines, Sophie Hollyman for the Raiders, number 55. Tohu Harris, parallel for the Warriors. Fan Faves, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors and Alex Seifert, parallel for the Tigers. Rising Stars, Grace Kemp for the Raiders. Brighton Cora, parallel for the Sharks. Season to remember, Stacey Wacker for the Broncos. Cameron Munster, parallel for the Storm. Showcase, Luke Brooks for the Broncos. Kalen Ponga, parallel for the Knights. Fan faves, Bulldogs, Jacob Preston. Reed Marnie, parallel for the Bulldogs. Gold parallel, number 49, Titans Checklist. Kyle Flanagan, parallel for the Dragons. Rising Stars, Casey McLean for the Panthers. Jerome Hughes, parallel for Storm. Rising Stars, Alehe Hopawate for Manly. Tyrell Sloan, parallel for the Dragons. The Converters, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Alexander Brimson, parallel for the Titans. Women's NRL, Keezy Apps for the Tigers. Warriors parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Dan Kerr for the Eels. Patrick Carrigan parallel for the Broncos. Fan faves in the team for the Roosters. Connor Watson's looking a bit orange there compared to Teddy. Maybe he's been hanging out with Trump. Knights parallel checklist. Season to remember, Anessa Biddle for the Sharks. Dylan Edwards parallel for Panthers. Fifth last packet for Case. Rising Stars, Samula for the Tigers. Sam Walker parallel for Roosters. Fan faves, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Bryce Cartwright parallel for the Eels. Club Heroes, Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Reese Robson parallel for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Leilani Montgomery for the Titans. Jacob Preston parallel for the Bulldogs. Showcase, Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Blake Brayley parallel for the Sharks. And that is the case done and dusted. Let's go with our final box. We have our priority. Rising Stars, Tony Francis for the Titans. Dylan Brown, parallel for the Eels. Rising Stars, Maverick Gaia for the Panthers. Raymond Fatala Mariner, parallel for the Dragons. Showcase Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Harry Grant, parallel for the Storm. Morgan Smithies, gold parallel number 22 for the Raiders. Big Tino, parallel for the Titans. Rising Stars, Charlie Geimer for the Eels. Jackson Ford, parallel for the Warriors. Converters, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Payne Haas, parallel for Broncos. Women's NRL, Mackenzie Whale for Cowboys. Nathan Cleary, parallel for Panthers. Season to remember for the Raiders, Jamal Fogarty. Parallel, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Fan faves, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Jason Tormalolo, parallel for the Cowboys. Rising Stars, Samuel Stone Street for the Sharks. Daly Cherry Evans, parallel for Manly. Rising Stars, Alaya for the Roosters. Helam Aluki, parallel for the Cowboys. Fan phase, Thomas Hazleton for the Sharks. Angus Crichton, parallel for the Roosters. Season to remember, Trey Fuller for the Dolphins. Stephen Crichton, parallel for the Bulldogs. And our fan faves priority team, number 34 for the Bulldogs. Rising Stars, Kai Pearce Paul for the Knights. Hudson Young, parallel for the Raiders. Season to remember, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Lachlan Galvin parallel for the Tigers. Club Heroes, Blaze Talagi for the Eels. Alex Johnston parallel for the Rabbitohs. Fan phase, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Ronaldo Mulatalo parallel for the Sharks. Women's NRL, Georgia Hale for the Knights. Dolphins parallel checklist. Rising Stars, Caleb Navale for Manly. Bradman Best parallel for Knights. Fan phase, Josh King for the Storm. Adam Reynolds parallel for the Broncos. Rising Stars, Benjamin Takura for the Broncos. And we have a men's Dalian Predictor, number 27 for the Raiders. The Raiders seem to have done alright today. I think a few teams have actually. It's good. Liam Martin, parallel for Panthers. Showcase Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luciano Leilua, parallel for the Dragons. The Converters, Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Sean Lane, parallel for the Eels. Gold parallel for the Sharks, number 134, Ellie Johnston. Storm parallel checklist. Women's NRL, Emma Tony Gatto for the Sharks. And Jacob Carraz, parallel for the Bulldogs. So we've still got our 2 gold club hero priorities and our gold converter priority. So plenty still to come in this box. Rising Stars, Joe Chan for Storm. Mawaiki Fotowaika, parallel for Titans. Rising Stars, Max Plath for Dolphins, and Roosters parallel checklist. Season to remember, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Jeremiah Nanai parallel for Cowboys. Season to remember, Clint Gufferson for the Eels. Chance, Nicole Klokstad, parallel for the Warriors. Fan Faves, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. Morgan Smithies, parallel for the Raiders. Gold Club Heroes, number 33 of 33, Isaiah Yeo for Panthers. Amoli Olika R2, parallel for Manly. Rising Stars, Jacob Laban for Warriors. Cameron Murray, parallel for the Rabbitohs. 4 packets left for the box. And we have our gold converters. Number 14, Zahara Tamara. Police Kafusi, parallel for the Dolphins. Rising Stars, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Tigers, parallel checklist. Season to remember, Cameron Munster for Storm. William Kennedy, parallel for the Sharks. And last but not least, because I still believe we have one more priority, unless I've forgotten that we already hit it, which I hope we did. Will Penasini, fan faves for the Eels. Dylan Lucas, parallel for the Knights. And I'm just going to double check that we did hit the 2 club heroes. On there. Of what? 2 club heroes per box. It's probably there, I just didn't see. If anyone's watching and did see the 2 club heroes, please let me know. Because I didn't spot it just. Maybe, but yeah, I'll still double check. It was the Eels one. Oh, thank you very much. Did I not put a sleeve on it? No, I didn't. Naughty. That's why I couldn't find it. Number 4. Thank you, Matt. Much appreciated, mate. I would have found it with the pictures, but Didn't help me right this moment. Alright, there we go. Had me, pardon? Yeah, that's it. I didn't miss anything. I'm okay. I did good. Okay, so before we finish up, now that we've sorted that out, we have our Showcase a Bronze group card. We'll do that one first, along with our 2 normal Showcase group cards. We'll do each of them individually after that. And to finish up, we'll do our $100 gift card, which is randomized between all 17 spots. So let's flick over our screen, over to the randomizer one. There we are. Everyone is loaded in and ready to go already. Makes it nice and easy. We will just copy that so we can paste it in straight away. And here we go. Number 1, number 2, and lucky last, number 3 for the bronze group card. Finn Sternbeck with the Storm. Alright, let's reset. And let's go. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. Maria Lagan with the Broncos. And one more of those group cards. 1, 2, lucky last, number 3, Josh Ellis with the Dolphins. Alright, lucky last is our $100 gift card. One more time, here we go. Number 1, number 2, and lucky last, number 3, Nick Porter with Manly. Congratulations. Alright, well, that's it. That's all. I hope you all had a ball. And don't forget to check out our breaks that are currently listed. Plenty of spots available to be in our next